Closure doesn't set you free. Closure kills your story. And unfinished stories? They own you forever. Think about it. The text you never got back still lingers in your head. The relationship that ended without a reason still haunts you at night. The opportunity that disappeared without explanation, you still replay 1,000 times, trying to find out why. That's the paradox of the human mind. We don't crave happiness as much as we crave answers. Our brains are wired to hate unfinished business. We need finality. We need the last page of the book. And when we don't get it, we suffer. We obsess. We can't move on. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. The most brutal form of power is not destruction, but silence. Not confrontation, but withdrawal. Not revenge, but leaving without closure. Because when you give people closure, you set them free. But when you deny it, you don't just live in their memory, you live in their mind. Human beings are addicted creatures. But our greatest addiction is not pleasure. It's not love. It's certainty. Your brain hates open loops. That's why you can't stop checking a notification that never loads. Why you binge entire seasons just to see how the story ends. Why a single unanswered question keeps you awake at 3 a.m. while everything else in your life seems fine. Neuroscientists call it the Zeigarnik effect. The unfinished dominates the finished. Your mind pays 10 times more attention to the cliffhanger than to the resolution. Because once a story is closed, the brain releases dopamine, feels satisfied, and moves on. But when the ending never comes, your mind keeps circling, searching, obsessing. This is why closure feels like medicine. We beg for explanations. We demand apologies. We chase after clarity. We believe, naively, that if only we had the last page, we would finally heal. But that's the trap. Closure doesn't heal you. Closure kills the story. And in killing the story, it erases the power of the person who left it unfinished. Think about your own life. The people who explained themselves, clearly, directly, honestly. How much do you think of them today? Probably not at all. They gave you peace, and peace is forgettable. But the one who disappeared without a word, the one who left questions instead of answers, they still occupy a corner of your mind, don't they? Carl Jung would say, this isn't just about them, it's about you. The unanswered question is not only external, it mirrors the unanswered question inside your own psyche. Every time you demand closure, what you're really asking is, show me the part of myself I can't face. The shadow self, the doubts, the insecurities, the hidden fears, gets triggered by the absence of closure. Because when someone leaves you with silence, they force you to confront your own shadow. And the more you resist it, the more power their absence holds over you. That is why Machiavelli understood, closure is not a gift. It's a release, and to release someone is to lose them forever. Machiavelli warned of this 500 years ago. Never explain more than necessary. Because every explanation you give is a rope, and with enough rope, they climb out of the prison you built for them. But the less you explain, the deeper they sink. The more they guess, the more they invent. And in their guessing, you become unforgettable. Think about it in love. Most people end relationships during a fight. Words thrown, explanations given, finality achieved. That person may cry, but a month later they sleep soundly, because their mind has closed the book. But what if you left differently? Not in anger, not in chaos, but in silence. Imagine giving someone a peak emotional moment, deep affection, vulnerability, even passion, and then disappearing. No argument, no closure, just absence. Now the story doesn't end where they expected. The arc is broken. And because the mind cannot tolerate broken arcs, they become addicted to finishing it. But there is nothing to finish. So they replay it endlessly. They wonder if you'll return, if they did something wrong, if they missed a sign. You live inside their imagination long after you've moved on. This is why Machiavelli's law of incompletion is not about cruelty, it's about control. You control not by shouting, but by withholding. You dominate not by closing the story, but by leaving it open. And here's the shift. It doesn't only work in romance. In business negotiations, the silent pause forces the other side to reveal their hand. In politics, the vague promise keeps entire nations waiting, speculating, clinging. A speech unfinished, a move unexplained, a decision never clarified. These generate more influence than volumes of explanations ever could, because the truth is simple. A finished story dies. An unfinished story never does. Obsession always begins quietly. It starts with one unanswered question, one silent departure, one door left slightly open. At first, the person replays the story alone. What did I do wrong? When will they return? What did that silence mean? Their mind fills the gaps with endless theories. Every theory keeps you alive. Every unanswered why keeps you relevant. And soon, you're no longer a memory. You're a presence. Not because you exist in their life, but because you exist in their mind. But obsession doesn't stay private for long. People who don't get closure don't just think silently. They talk, they gossip, they speculate with friends, with colleagues, with strangers. Why did he leave like that? Do you think she'll come back? What do you think it meant? And without lifting a finger, your absence becomes a conversation. Your silence creates social gravity. They spread your name, not because you asked them to, but because you remain unresolved. History shows this pattern again and again. Napoleon's sudden retreats confused entire empires. The uncertainty was more terrifying than defeat. In our time, Apple never reveals their full roadmap. Every silence, every hint, fuels months of speculation, articles, debates. Scarcity becomes hype. Silence becomes marketing. Mystery becomes dominance. And here's the transformation. Obsession becomes myth. An unfinished story doesn't just linger, it grows. It becomes larger than the truth ever was. People begin to remember you, not as you were, but as the story they created about you. And stories last longer than facts. That's why Machiavelli would say, do not aim to be understood, aim to be remembered. And nothing is remembered more powerfully than the unresolved. Here's the danger. Most people hear this and think it means you should ghost everyone, cut ties recklessly, vanish to feel powerful. But that's not strategy. That's immaturity. The Machiavellian way is different. You don't withdraw randomly. You withdraw with design. You choose the moment of maximum impact. You leave when the story is strongest, when the emotion is highest, when the other person expects you least. That's when absence bites deepest. Not during conflict, not during decline, but right at the peak. That's how you engineer an unfinished story that never fades. But here's the second layer. You can't control others if you can't control yourself. The truth is, you also crave closure. You also want answers. And if you're not careful, your own hunger for certainty becomes a chain. To master this law, you must first master yourself. Learn to live without closure. Learn to walk away without needing to be understood. Learn to let silence be your final word. Because the moment you stop needing closure for yourself, you become the one who sets the tempo. Everyone else plays catch-up. And this is where the final principle emerges. The law of emotional scarcity. The less you give, the more valuable it becomes. The fewer words you speak, the heavier they weigh. The rarer your presence, the more people chase it. Scarcity multiplies power, because what's rare is remembered, and what's remembered is worshipped. So don't think of silence as retreat. Think of it as currency. Every explanation you withhold, every answer you deny, every story you leave incomplete, that is emotional scarcity. And scarcity, in human psychology, is the purest form of power. Closure sets people free. Mystery keeps them yours. So the real question is, do you want to be remembered or forgotten? Do you want to be a closed chapter in someone's life, or the unresolved story they carry forever? Machiavelli understood. Power is not in domination through presence. It's in lingering through absence. And when you learn to master silence, when you learn to leave stories unfinished, you stop chasing validation, and you start commanding obsession. This is just one of the dark laws of psychological leverage. And if you want to master the rest, subscribe now, because the next video will show you why silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you untouchable.